I'm Julie Gilman. I'm a selectman here in Exeter, and I'm going to be moderating this webcast with Cate Edwards and Cate Michelman. We have lots of questions that have come in, so I'd like to get right into the questions. This first one is from Stacy from Intervale, New Hampshire. And she says, I live in a part of the world where the good old boys still have a lot of power. What can John Edwards do to empower all people who are willing to work hard and take responsibility?
Stacy, that's a great question. I think my dad sort of has led the fight this time around against the power inside Washington, and the first most important way that he's done that has been to not take money from Washington lobbyists, to ensure that he is really only working for the American people, not the lobbyists, big corporations who have lots of money, who have bought a lot of the power in Washington. That's sort of the first step, and that enables him to really fight for working people. With respect to the specific things that he can do to sort of reverse the war on work, as he calls it, that this Republican administration has started. The first thing he would do would be to create tax cuts for the middle class, so that life is basically more affordable for the middle class, and that starts with tripling the earned income tax credit, and also creating tax credits for child care, so that women and families are actually able to afford child care and work at the same time. Another important step in that is to increase savings, and he does that by matching savings up to $5,000 for each family, matching I think 50% of savings up to $5,000, so that families can start a nest egg, start saving for retirement, start saving for college education, start saving for a home, or the various other things that create the safety nets that so many wealthy people have, but that working class Americans are missing. And in terms of what he can do to sort of fund part of that, at least, is to increase the capital gains tax. My dad always uses this example, which is when Warren Buffett says that he actually pays less tax on his capital gains than his secretary pays for the work that she does. That's incredible and clearly not right. So he would increase that back to 28%. And one other thing he would do specifically for women working, since we've been traveling around New Hampshire this weekend talking about women, one thing that he would do for women specifically is something called his REACH program, which creates funding and help for women who are starting small businesses, and that allows them to sort of crack into a traditionally male field and do things that women have fought so long to be able to do, and allows them to actually commit to the work that they want to be doing.
Okay, this question is from Tara from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. What would Senator Edwards do to address the issues facing working women who are increasingly reporting that they can't have it all? What kind of workplace and/or public policy recommendations does John have that would help mitigate the too often forced decisions of off-ramping and the mommy track?
Do you want to take that one?
No, you go ahead. You're on a roll.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was yours. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
I think I'm sorry. The name of the person who
Tara.
Tara. Very important question as well, and I think that Cate Edwards addressed some of it. But John Edwards, the issues that he's leading on. First of all, addressing low-wage jobs, a living wage, inequities in the workplace, inequities in pay, is imbued with an understanding that women still work under certain attitudinal burdens and certain discrepancies in the way that we are treating women versus men. But I also think that it is clear that as women have taken on more and more responsibilities in society, becoming workers, professionals, as well as handling the majority of responsibilities for family including now caring for their parents as well as their children. It's an enormous burden, and he recognizes, John Edwards does, that society has not kept pace with women's expanded responsibilities and has dedicated himself to ensuring that supports that society can offer that enable women to better balance, if you will, their work life with their family life. Supports such as ensuring quality, affordable daycare that's universal and is out there, health care, transportation, support for families in on a range of levels, is all designed to recognize that it is increasingly hard for women to be able to do all of these things, and that something has to give here, that we have to address the burdens that women face and make it easier, at the same time as enabling women to achieve whatever they desire and whatever their potential enables them to achieve. I'm not sure I'm as specific as, did you want to add
Yeah, I mean,
anything?
I think one of the things that we had discussed previously that's really helpful is, and you did mention Head Start and and early childhood programs that I think help relieve some of the burdens on women in terms of caring for their families, and also and I mentioned this earlier, which is an increased child care tax credit, which allows women to actually try to better balance the strain of working for a living and also taking care of their family.
His whole approach, one final word on that, his whole, John Edwards' attention to economic inequalities, which are manifest in the workplace, in the home, the difficulty women have in balancing and managing all the responsibilities of work and home, is really at the heart of addressing the question that you asked, which is how do we get at making it possible for women to be successful at handling all these responsibilities they have.
Okay, thank you. Michelle asks, I'm a neonatal ICU nurse, and while praising John Edwards' health plan efforts, I wanted to ask what he plans on doing to make abortion safe, legal, and rare.
I think that's a very important question, by the way, because women's reproductive health is at greater risk, and I would argue in grave risk for poor women, especially rural women, young women, and will be at graver risk if we do not elect a Democrat to the White House, because the Supreme Court is already moving in a very bad direction for women, and so are the lower federal courts. But to go specifically to your question, what would John Edwards do? John Edwards believes firmly in the reproductive freedom of women and understands it and will protect it as a fundamental right of women. He also, however, understands that unintended pregnancy, unexpected pregnancy, is at the root cause of the need for abortion. He understands women don't get pregnant, plan to get pregnant so they can run out and get an abortion, that women don't think that way and don't act that way, but that we aren't doing enough as a society to educate and to make access to reproductive health that would enable women to more successfully, at all times during their lives, prevent a pregnancy they don't plan to have. So his goal is to make abortion less necessary, not to make it more difficult, not to make it certainly dangerous, but to increase family planning funds that would that emphasize sex education that's comprehensive and age appropriate, to ensure access to prenatal care and to fund that, and also to ensure that there are social supports for women who choose to carry their pregnancies to term. So the goal is to educate and provide health care that enables women to make deliberate and informed decisions about prevention of pregnancy, carrying a pregnancy to term healthily, and if needs be, to terminate a pregnancy if that's the choice. But it's better, in his view, to emphasize the prevention, and that is not something the Bush administration has done. As a matter of fact, they have done just the opposite. They have made prevention much more difficult. So his emphasis will be prevention.
Okay. Elizabeth asks, many women unfortunately tend to end up as single mothers. What can be done to help these women support their families when many of them are uneducated and unskilled and must work 2 or 3 jobs to put food on the table for their children?
You should speak to that one.
Yeah, I was one of those women once upon a time. I was left abandoned as with 3 little girls, single mom, no job, no health care, no car. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time and was left in, like overnight, I was in a situation where I had no idea where I was going to find the resources to care for my little girls. I mean, it was sudden and dramatic. And when I tried to get a job, the fact that I was unmarried was a problem. I couldn't get a job that paid enough to pay for childcare. I couldn't get childcare. There was no such thing at the time. It was a terrible situation, and you're dead right about the experience that you describe for women. It's frightening. It's terrible. Well, John, that's the heart of John Edwards' whole approach, is that no woman should ever, no matter her station in life, no matter her marital status, no matter her social status, should ever have to fear every day or one day after another that she will not be able to support herself and her family. And to that end, you know, he is really devoted to these things we've talked about, if you've been listening, the economic issues, the discrimination in workplace in terms of pay equity, lack of opportunity. He's devoted to training, having training opportunities, opening up the possibilities for women to be able to work, have health care required by the employer, be sure that they're covered. I don't know if there are other things you want to mention, but I mean, this experience that you talk about is one he hears about everywhere he goes as he campaigns in the country. And it's what animates him to solve these problems where a woman has to work 2 or 3 jobs and care for her family and still feel as if she's not making it. It's just not acceptable. And so his economic policies are based on getting at the underpinnings of that experience.
Right. And you had mentioned the equal pay stuff.
Equal pay is a major issue for him, but minimum wage, really addressing some of these much more discriminatory, if I might say, policies toward women. But it's the economics of the issue is terribly difficult for women. I was forced onto welfare for a number of years, and that was necessary for me, and it helped me get started again. But it's not what most women want. They want to be able to work. They want to be able, the laws should be enforced about, support, child support. A lot of fathers, for one reason and another, don't support their family. So he's sort of comprehensive in his view of how to go about these things.
Thank you. David from Barrington, New Hampshire asks, as a graduate student who must look forward to paying back more than $25,000 in student loans upon graduation, I'm greatly concerned about the financial strain being placed upon young Americans who aspire to better themselves and our nation through higher education. How would John Edwards help students afford college without going into high levels of debt?
That's a good question, David. I know a lot of people who are actually in your position. The first step is a program that he calls College for Everyone, which basically says that if you are willing to work for 10 hours a week the first year you're in college and you're qualified to go, then you will get your college tuition paid for by the government. I think that'll send nearly 2 million kids to college. That's the initial step, and actually my parents have done that in a small part of a small county in western North Carolina. They enacted this exact plan, and it was amazingly successful. I think 70 to 80% of those kids are now in college, and so we know that this works, and we know that it helps kids who maybe wouldn't go to college because they couldn't afford it, or who would leave with a lot of debt. It actually makes it affordable for them, and it makes their future a lot brighter when they leave. Another, specifically speaking to college loans, which is, or graduate school loans, which is an incredible mess right now. Right now, what the government is basically doing is subsidizing bank loans. With taxpayer money, we are subsidizing bank loans and backing them up if there's some default by the student. That the middleman, the bank is just playing the middleman there and is actually not performing anything that the government couldn't be doing by itself. So if we allow students to borrow directly from the Department of Education, it makes this process much easier, much simpler for the student, and much more affordable for the student and for the country. That alone saves, I think, somewhere around $6 billion, which is enough to pay for the plan that I just mentioned, which is the College for Everyone plan.
My daughter, by the way, is in your place, David. She's struggling to pay her college loans. And some of us are fortunate enough to be able to help our kids, overcome those loans. But John Edwards knows that more has to be done.
Okay. Samuel asks, although the wage gap between men and women holds steady, women are severely underrepresented in state and national government, and women's reproductive rights are being systematically diminished. The Democratic Party has, for the past 3 decades, ignored what I feel would be the most useful tool to combat institutional sexism, an equal rights amendment. Does the ERA still seem that dangerous to politicians? What's Senator Edwards' stance on an ERA?
Samuel, I ought to put you out on the road because you did such a good job of really outlining a major concern about the status of women today. To answer the question about Senator Edwards and the ERA, he supports the ERA, I should say. He supports equal rights for women, unequivocally. Has acted on it all his life. I mean, he's equal partner with Elizabeth in everything he's done. It's one of the fundamental values he holds, and everything he does, he is an expression of his concern about how equal rights for women is still not a reality. Full equal rights, full equal participation in the socio-economic political life of this country. And you're right, we're still vastly underrepresented in legislative power bodies across the country. Women are making more gains. We are moving up, but it's still hard. But an equal rights amendment is something he would support if it made sense for us to move in that direction politically. And maybe it will again someday, I think his view is that we've got to get at some of these, underlying economic infrastructure problems that keep women from, being equal, frankly, and being exploited. But he is in support of an equal rights amendment.
Okay. Sarah from Exeter asks, one of the most effective ways to not only close the gender and pay power gap in this country, but to also better represent a diversity of issues, is to have more women in positions of power. I recently read that only 2 out of 15 of Edwards' senior staff are women. Do you think this is relevant when considering whether Edwards would be the best candidate to represent women's issues? If so, why? And can you explain the role of women in his campaign?
Well, I'm not completely sure, but that is not actually accurate. I don't think that you're included in that. You're definitely a very close senior advisor. And in fact, my dad's probably closest advisor would certainly be my mom. And I think that most people consider her a very strong advocate for women, and you know, her opinion counts and has played an incredibly important role in this campaign, as hopefully you've seen. I'd also say we're out on the road. It's obviously important to my dad to be reaching women. I know that the New Hampshire state director is a woman. The Iowa state director is a woman. Certainly there are women high in positions of power in this campaign, and it's important. It is important, and I don't think that this campaign is lacking in any way.
It is an important issue, and I appreciate that you raised it. I have to tell you, I read the same article, or articles I read, and they were just flat out wrong. I don't know where these people get this information. I'm a senior advisor to John Edwards' campaign. And funny they missed that. So these articles are generated, you know, out of a need to create controversy. The fact is, the reality is, however, that I would like to reassure you, I've been an advocate for women's rights all my life. And it matters, this very point that you raise is very important to me, that the candidates who are running have the voice of women equal with men in the decision-making of their campaigns. It's not always true. I've been frustrated as an advocate for women's rights that in the past presidential campaigns are not, the doors closed. They have women, but the door is really closed to how close you can get to the candidate. That is not true, number one, in the John Edwards campaign. Women are very prominent, very much a part of the team and the decision making. And women's issues. Though you might not hear the traditional kind of, you know, we think of women's issues and people automatically think, well, abortion, or they think, you know, but women's issues are the things that are most important to women. Their rights, their experience economically, health care, education, environment. These are issues that John Edwards is leading on and is not, you know, at all shy about taking on. So I want to reassure you that women's voices and views are very much a part of this campaign. And as Cate said, Elizabeth Edwards, no one takes a backseat to her voice. Now, I mean that in a very positive way. She is a strong women's advocate and brings that to every aspect of the campaign, frankly.
All right, thank you. That's all we have time for today.
Oh.
I appreciate you being here and spending the time with us in Exeter.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.